Hello and welcome to The Birth of a New Dimension. I am your host, Aurora, and we will be talking about the changes that are happening in the quality of consciousness in Earth and in the universe at large on this radio show. So first, I'd like to introduce myself for people who didn't catch the introductory episode last week. I call myself a galactic walk-in, and I also describe myself as a visionary artist. So when I say galactic walk-in, first of all, I mean a person who is not the original inhabitant of this physical body. I came into this physical form on October 8th in 2001, so I have just celebrated my walking in day. And so I have been living here as a human on the surface of Earth for the past 13 years. And at the same time, I receive information in an abstract format from higher consciousness, from less dense dimensions, and filter that information through the anthropomorphic filter of training in the visual arts. So I bring that energy to this planet in the form of painting, sculpture, animations, recorded videos, and a series of recorded lessons called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. And I have entitled the material Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans because each one of us is a full spectrum. Each one of us is truly the entire rainbow from red all the way up to violet, and is not merely the first three chakras. Chakras are energy centers on the body. Chakra comes from the Sanskrit word for spinning wheel. These are not merely on the body in the same way that you wear clothing on your body. These are energy centers that interpenetrate and are intertwined with the physical matter of your corporeal body. And chakras themselves are consciousness. So now we're going to get into really sophisticated levels of abstraction in talking about consciousness, and I'm inviting everyone along on this journey. So this is the idea that there might be an overarching or meta-consciousness, an overarching entity that has subsets of consciousness within it, and that a person or an individual being can be a conduit for larger consciousness. So I use as one example the cells on the retina of an eye, that each one of us can be like an individual receptor cell on the retina of a great entity. And the totality of your individual experience is like the totality of the individual experience of a cell. And when you add up your total life experience along with everyone else's total life experience, what you get is a type of mosaic of vision. And that would look more like an insect's eye that has many different facets of reality and fuses those facets into an overarching understanding. So what I have just described is Christ consciousness. So now let me qualify that Christ consciousness does not have anything at all to do with the Christian religion as it is currently being taught and the Christian doctrine as it is being spread on the surface of planet Earth today. So that is very good because it means that Christ consciousness is for everyone. It is not only for humans, it is for every living thing. It is for all consciousness. Literally, Christ is synonymous with consciousness. So from now and moving forward on this radio broadcast and in my teachings, when you hear me speak about Christ and Christ consciousness, I'm speaking about a universal or galactic being, a very, very large entity which has at times manifested parts of itself into avatar containers. Avatar, what a wonderful movie. But the origin of the word avatar is also Sanskrit. It comes from avatar, meaning one who has come across waters. And the waters that are crossing here are waters of consciousness. It's like saying a being who has come from the other side to occupy a vessel here in this time and place. So that is, of course, how I would qualify people like Jesus and many great teachers who have been here have been avatars or containers for higher consciousness. And we are talking now about the subtlety of nested consciousness. And people are beginning to explore this in their own way by performing what is called channeling. So I also do not describe myself as a channeler. For example, right now, I am fully in myself, fully aware of myself. And when I say self, I'm talking about the ego construct called Aurora. So all egos are constructs. My construct, I am aware of its, the fact that it has been constructed, that it's not my natural, or let's say, unadulterated, but adultery is such a, like, not the root word I'm looking for, but it is not my unrefined or unprocessed self. You know, we each have a pure core of consciousness, and then layered on top of that consciousness, there are aspects of the temporal self. When I say temporal, I mean deriving from being submerged in time. So you and me and many others who are listening to this broadcast are third-dimensional beings. You're wearing a third-dimensional bio-bodysuit, and you are submerged in the flow of time. Contrasting that with hyperspace beings who do not have a corporeal, biological, cellular bodysuit, and who exist outside of the stream of time. So to contrast these two divergent ways of perception, living outside of the stream of time is very much like being able to perceive an entire musical score. Take all of the pages of your favorite song written out as a musical score and lay it out on a table so you can literally look at all of the notes all at once. However, you are not experiencing that song. When the song is actually being played by a musician and you're perceiving it with your ears, that is analogous to the experience of being submerged in time, of actually being in the third dimension. So when I'm listening to my favorite song, I certainly, if I know the song, I can anticipate what the next note is going to be, but I don't hear it yet. I hear one note at a time. It is a time-based experience. This is what our temporal experience is. It is a time-based experience, and much of the viewpoint that is derived from being submerged in time has to do with limited perspective. So beings that live in a higher dimensional state have an exalted perspective. The analogy would be like living on top of a mountain, where you can look down and you can see all of the little tiny things that are going on and all of the little interconnected weaving tendrils that make things happen, but you're not really down there on the ground. And then to contrast, so those hyperspace beings that are at that level, and excuse me one moment while I just have a drink. Those hyperspace beings that are at that level are, first of all, what I would classify as my spirit guides or my spirit friends and family, or really my family of origin, and I am in constant telepathic rapport with them. Now, I understand that mostly humanity has been artificially separated from its own higher self. And this higher self, and when I say higher, I do not necessarily mean better in quality or more valuable or more special. I mean higher like a higher note. On the piano, there are high notes and there are low notes. And it's the same thing in the multidimensional spectrum of existence. There are higher dimensions that are less dense, and there are lower dimensions that are more dense. So I know that I said in the introductory episode that I was going to talk about building a dimension from the 0th dimension forward. I'm also going to talk about the different states of matter, different densities of matter. From, something, matter as we see it here, like the hard-edged matter of a table, if you touch a table next to you, is not the densest level of matter. There is actually a level of matter even denser than that called a Bose-Einstein condensate. And up from that, there's the matter that we're familiar with, then there is liquid, then there is solid, then there is gas, then there is plasma. Plasma is what flame or fire is made out of. And although there is plasma on the surface of a star like the sun, it's not the only thing that the sun is made of. And when you organize plasma, or many, many light beams that are going all over in an unorganized manner, like I like to say hither, thither, and yon, when you organize all of those light beams, or information, or thoughts, or abstract energy into coherency, meaning all of the peaks of the waves and all of the troughs of the waves match up, what you have is a beam. And then now we're talking about focusing consciousness, and we're talking about getting into layers of less dense matter and more focused consciousness and awareness. So literally, your body, and when I refer to the body from now on, I'm not just referring to your physical construct, I'm referring to all of the layers of your body. I'm presuming and inviting you to claim your sovereignty as a full spectrum human. That means you are a physical being, and of course, so if we were with each other right now, I would be pointing to, the base of the spine. That's the red chakra, the very beginning, the I am presence. It's the first chakra, it says I exist. The orange chakra up from there is the lower belly. It's where the intestines exist. It's where your guts are, or one often experiences one's intuition there. And it is the seat of mammalian emotions. So mammalian emotions must be differentiated from an emotion like unconditional love, which is the primary emotion or the primary energetic currency or flavor as it is flowing. When that primary flavor gets slightly slowed down, just like one might have a recording of a voice or an instrument, and as that recording is slowed down, it becomes more distorted. And that is what some of these lower level emotions are. They are distorted emanations of the true, pure emanation of unconditional love. Is not to cast any form of judgment upon them. In fact, all of your chakras are necessary. All of your chakras are beautiful when they're in a state of total health. Please do not try to get rid of any of your chakras. I have read something on the internet recently that was a consideration of whether people will still need their chakras and whether they will somehow transcend beyond them and no longer need them. And I will tell you that your chakras are intertwined with you and are a part of you, and you definitely want to keep them, just like you want to keep all of your major organs. You don't want to lose your heart or your brain or your liver. You don't want to lose your red chakra or your orange chakra or your yellow chakra. But these three chakras, the physical body, animal emotions, and when I say mammalian emotions, I'm talking about the desire to hug, cuddle, express affection, procreate with, mate with, a lot of the feelings of affection that are associated with romance occur at the level of the orange chakras, as do less desired emotions such as jealousy, envy, sadness, grief, hatred. These are all valid emotions, especially when one looks at the realm of the animals, which is a very pure realm of action and reaction. Anger is a very valid energy that has its place in one's energy system and in one's life experience. Anger is the emotion of pushing something away, and it's necessary to have that for self-protection, especially if one is submerged in lower layers of density. We are surrounded by other beings that are submerged in density, and it might be necessary to push some of them away from you at a certain point, either physically or using words or concepts. If you took away anger, like the way that, there are some spiritual teachings, they say, don't get angry or whatever, that's not loving in terms of totally accepting of oneself. You need to accept the totality of yourself, and also it's like throwing out a color from your paint palette. It's like saying, I won't paint with that color, I refuse to use it. These are all of the mammalian emotions are valid emotions, and they are colors in your paint box. But as the artist of your life, you get to choose which colors you use a lot of and which colors you use a minimum amount of. And the cautious or, use, like aesthetic use of a little bit of anger here and there makes it effective, but of course painting a whole entire canvas blood red with anger would reduce the effectiveness of that particular emotion. And up from orange, right at the level of the solar plexus, so this would be above your navel but below your chest, is the level of mind. And again, you don't have to get rid of mind. This is also the level of ego. You don't have to get rid of ego. And I will tell you some of my experiences of being a walk-in. When I first walked into this body, first of all, the experience of walking in was involved with like a lot of difficulty and trauma on the esoteric hyperspace realms. And this body had some damage, some neurological and biological damage in walking into it. So there were challenges in integrating my energy and my consciousness into this form. I'm just going to take a brief drink of water. And I also want to redirect to not go too far afield because I'm going up the ladder of the spectrum and talking about the chakras. One of the things that was reduced or taken away in the initial attack that I experienced was a total destruction of the ego. So the former occupant of this body had a different name than Aurora and lived a different life and had a totally different persona. And really it must be understood that all personas, all selves, your ego self, are constructs. They are not your true self. They're the suit of clothes that you wear here in this time and place. You describe yourself as, I'm this person with this name, I come from this place, here's my backstory, here's the bad thing that happened to me in 3rd grade, here's the good thing that happened to me in 11th grade, and then here's who I am right now. And people hold that up. This is the mantra that people repeat to themselves over and over, and it is called personal history, and its constant inner repetition is part of what upholds one's view of reality. So again, it is not inherently bad, but it's just like having a body. One does not want to have a diseased or unathletic or, disabled body. One wants to have a fit, healthy body that can do what it needs to do here in this time and place. So when I first came into this body, there was not an ego. There was not an interface to talk with other humans. I didn't have the backstory. I didn't have a name. I wasn't able to meet someone on the street, shake their hand, introduce themselves, and say, hello, my name is such and such, and here's where I come from, and here's what I'm all about, and here's my family lineage. And that made it very difficult for me to interface with everyone else who did have a sense of self and a backstory. And also, having an ego means that you have a personal agenda. And there's nothing wrong with having a personal agenda. But now we are going to get into a sophisticated understanding here. We'll call this the advanced class. That, it has been an artificial separation between quote-unquote higher self and lower self. Those first 3 chakras of red, orange, and yellow for tens of thousands of years have been artificially separated from the unconditional love of the green chakra and all of the higher faculties and all of the higher dimensional beings that come with being a full spectrum person. So for a very long time, the definition of humanity has been about humanity being limited. The definition of humanity, like to err is human, but to forgive divine. This is programmed in, but it's a false program. So a lot of what I have to offer is a new program. You can bust those old behavior patterns and you can incept something new. And it's, I think, much more expansive and much more interesting to be a full spectrum human, because once you move up from the level of yellow and activate the level of green, that is unconditional love. And unconditional love, I call it the currency of the universe. It literally, there's electric currency. This is called the flow of energy in the realm of physics. And there's currency in the realm of economy, which is money and the capacity to get something done. Those are physical analogies, analogs to what unconditional love is in the hyperspace realm. So unconditional love is literally a tone, in the same way that a musical note is a tone. And the tone is created, the musical note that I just sang is created by the vibration of the vocal cords and the molecules of the air and the molecules that are part of the metal of this microphone. When you are creating unconditional love, what is vibrating is essentially time. We're talking about energy. We're talking about your time body. So, when I teach, I usually use my artwork and drawings as a way of speaking. And here on the radio, I'm only using my voice. And if you're tuned in through the UCY page, you will see the Facebook feed probably in your lower left-hand corner. And if you click on those, you will see the images that pertain to this week's radio broadcast. So you will see images that depict the chakras on the body, and also a depiction of, like a kind of diagram of a cone or a vortex in cutaway vision, like you have cut it in half and you can see inside of it, and it's filled with timelines. So these vortex shapes are what your chakras are made of. They are made due to the dimpling or pinching or puckering of the surface of the fabric of space, time, and consciousness. And please notice, yes, I did add consciousness into there. Science often talks about the fabric of space, time, but science does not yet recognize consciousness as a crucial ingredient to the weaving and upholding of space, time. So what causes the shape of your chakras? This has everything to do with consciousness on its journey. So when I teach, it's a lot easier for me to draw these diagrams and then show energy as it is flowing. With my voice, I will describe to you, if you can imagine a little dot moving along a line and moving toward the edge of a membrane, that would be you moving along a timeline, and the membrane is the membrane of death. And this is a flowing sheet of energy that exists much like a waterfall. So when one must understand that the chakras are created simply by energy moving amidst itself, just like a tornado is created just by air and water vapor whirling and swirling amidst itself, or a black hole, or any of these natural formations that are seen in the physical world of the vortex shape. So in the non-physical realm, which is made of time and consciousness, the whirling and swirling motion of that energy, that abstract energy, creates these vortexes. And in the same way that water has a meniscus, or a layer that's created through surface tension. It's a slight thickening on top of every surface of the water. It's fascinating. If you get a glass of water and look at it edge on, you can see this. It's like a little science experiment. And you can even note, if you stick a pencil into the water, how that meniscus acts as a lens, and it bends the light, and it looks like the pencil is broken. Well, this thickening at the edge of the water is similar to the thickening at the edge of the vortex where the energy is swirling. That waterfall of energy, it is a membrane of consciousness beyond which one may not travel. So as soon as you reach that membrane, you are unmade, you are dismantled. This is the journey of your consciousness. And I love the movie Groundhog Day, and huge applause to Bill Murray and to the people who created that, because this gives us a vernacular shorthand which we can refer to. The idea that life is a video game, and that you are constantly playing and replaying the same experiences over and over, experiencing every single iteration or possible combination of energy and behavior until you reach the desired outcome. And the desired outcome is essentially release. You get released from this experience. You get released from this level of density. You get released from this lifetime and truly from this experience of being in a bio bodysuit in this time and place. But that release does not signify the end of your consciousness journey. Not at all. It just means that your consciousness journeys into the next layer or the next quanta, where you begin the same process of endlessly exploring the iterations until you find that one perfect combination. I don't know if you ever read a Choose Your Own Adventure book, but it is very similar. In Choose Your Own Adventure books, you find yourself in a haunted house. If you open the door, turn to page 23. If you choose not to open the door and to turn and walk away and go back to your cozy bed, turn to page 42. And in this way, you can explore the Choose Your Own Adventure. Eventually, you know what happens at every cusp, at every decision-making point. So these cusps or decision-making points. These are when you use the steering wheel, not only of your mind, but of your consciousness, because we now must define terms. What is the difference between mind and consciousness? Mind, I would define as the human mind. What the level of awareness that is happening at the level of the yellow chakra, your daily waking consciousness. But we understand that that is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's also a hacked operating system. When I call it hacked, I mean in much the same way that Microsoft programs into its operating systems back doors through which it can take control of your computer if necessary, and with your consent, of course. So too did the creators of the operating system known as the human mind program in their own back doors through which they could constantly poke you, access your consciousness, and feed off of you and milk you for the emotions and emanations that they desire. So what I'm referring to obliquely right now is a topic that we'll return to quite often in Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, which, by the way, check out my website, flyingrainbowlasagna.com, because you can read all about the complete course syllabus and all about, if you're interested in joining, find out exactly how. It's called Online Course is the tab to click on. I save it for lesson 18 of Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, and so that will be coming up in a few weeks on the Wednesday weekly interactive webinar. But this is basically has to do with the heritage of life on Earth. What and who incepted humanity, influenced humanity and its development and human culture, and have been overtly and covertly controlling human behavior. So I am talking about the beings who created what would be understood as the program of the human mind and the verbal language that I am using to communicate with you right now. This verbal language is part of the hacked operating system. And one of the problems with the operating system, known as the human mind, is that it doesn't have an off button. So it is installed in early childhood in most humans, along with language, and it is an essential tool for survival. For example, when you were a tiny child, you had needs that you could not fulfill on your own for food and other essential body care, and you had to somehow communicate to the people around you what you needed. And being able to learn language was a survival mechanism. So each one of us made a choice to ingest these programs. However, it was not a fully informed choice as to the ramifications of what would happen, because unfortunately, as the human mind grows, and I'm talking about verbalized conscious thought, incessantly speaking in the mind during the day, the connection to the higher self diminishes, because it is through silence, through inner silence, that we connect to our true mind, and we connect to our true higher consciousness. So you understand now that although the human mind is like a tool that can be very effective, it can allow you to think about objects that aren't in your direct presence. Like, this is one thing that separates humanity from animals. And animals are beautiful and have their own mind and their own sense of perception. And it can be difficult to even describe what it's like to people who have the human mind. But this is not to diminish any animal's mind. And I will also point to dolphins who actually have more surface area on their cerebral cortex than humans do. They have more convolutions and thereby more connectivity. And so they probably have a greater degree of intellect and mind than humans do. So, part of this broadcast is I have a desire and a mission to be preparing humanity for overt interaction with hyperspace beings. And a lot of this has to do with, first, humans becoming aware of their own hyperspace presence. This is the idea that humanity is aware of the body, mammalian emotions, and mind, but not much else of what's going on. And it's like having tendrils that reach into another realm, or like having legs under the table that you're kicking people with that you're not even aware of, that you don't even know are happening or overtly acknowledge. And this is everything to do with science not acknowledging consciousness. Consciousness really is seated in and emanates from the brow chakra, the indigo, so it would be the indigo color, and it is located on your forehead, and it is also the center of Christ consciousness. I don't want to skip the other chakras though. We did unconditional love as a tone, and the tone is created by an equal exchange of energy. Isn't that very beautiful? So it's kind of like this. If you give me 2 units of energy and I give you 2 units of energy back, then we are loving one another. Love has to do with total acceptance. So if you give me 2 units of energy and I'm like, well, I accept 1.5 units of these energy, but I don't accept 0.5 units, and I only send you back 1.5 units, that's not love. What I have just done is used an abstraction in order to delineate an example. But if I now anthropomorphize it, you'll understand it in a different way. What if you show me who you are as a person, and that's like 2 units, and I don't accept it all? I say, well, there's 0.5 units over here where it's like, no, I don't like this aspect about you, can't deal with this, don't want to acknowledge this, want to live in denial about this, so I just won't be accepting that. And then you're only able to reflect back acceptance and knowledge of and awareness, overt awareness of a portion of that other person. This pretty much defines the current human existence on Earth. However, the show is about birth of a new dimension and things really changing around here. Humanity is being prepared on an individual level and on a cultural level for this connection to higher self. So first of all, in meeting extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional entities, you will be reuniting with aspects of your own being. Aspects of your own being from which you have been separated artificially and for such a long time that it appears as if you are approaching something or someone alien or other. But I will tell you that you are not approaching anything that is other than a reflection of what is inside of you. When you meet hyperspace beings, you are literally meeting reflectors of who and what you are. And these hyperspace beings have been here all along. So the good news and the bad news is that Earth has already been invaded. You know, there's all of these movies about, strange-looking creatures falling from the sky and coming and taking over human society and the bad things that happen because of that. This is like a human way of understanding and exploring the shadow realms of fear that are in the thing. It's in the box of denial. It's in the box of things that humans don't want to actually admit to, which is that you've already been invaded. You were invaded between 10 and 20,000 years ago, and everything that you call human culture is actually a tool for your oppression used by your oppressors, including not only human culture, economy, language, science, technology, all of that is being used instead of as a tool for expansion and upliftment, as a tool to limit, constrain, and reduce your consciousness and your freedom. But we are now in a new time because of Flying Rainbow Lasagna. So even if you look at the logo for this show, you will see a beautiful image of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. And my Facebook persona is named Flying Rainbow Lasagna. Why do I do this? What is it? Why am I obsessed with this name and shape? And basically, it's an important thing to look at in order to understand it. It speaks on levels beyond the hacked operating system of the human mind and verbal linguistics that come from that. And it is the shape that you can reform your chakras into and achieve a greater degree of freedom. Basically, it is the end result of adding an additional dimension to your current dimension. And so I invented and created the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a concept in 2001. And from that moment on, reality was not the same. Once a thought has been created, truly it can be utilized by anyone in reality. And we have to kind of think about this, that thoughts are themselves living, alive creatures. And they float around looking for minds and consciousnesses much like a womb. Like they want to be born, so they're looking for a fertile place to settle in and be nourished and eventually manifested. Or in the way that you would consider like a yeast bacteria, not a yeast bacteria, like a yeast little cell is flying through the air, and then it finds a nice ball of water and flour, and it says, that looks like a good place where I could live and I could colonize, and it goes in there and it creates some beautiful sourdough bread. I just need to take a little drink there. This is what I'm talking about, that ideas exist as individuated beings on their own, even if they are not corporeal. And they look to partner with corporeal beings. This is the partnership between the inorganic and the organic realm. If I define inorganic life as life that does not fit the definition held by science here in this time and place. So science defines life as having a metabolism, like eating, respirating, ingesting, excreting, exhibiting intelligence, like response to stimuli, having the capacity to procreate. And for example, viruses are only semi-alive under the scientific definition of what is life. Viruses cannot eat on their own. They require a host. And they cannot reproduce on their own. They also require a host for that. So this is why we don't enjoy viruses, because they come into our cells and take over the cell's meaning and mission and force the cell to produce a bunch more viruses. And that's not a very effective thing in terms of achieving homeostasis. So inorganic beings do not eat physical food. And they do not reproduce in the sense of, two inorganic beings coming together and then creating a new baby little inorganic being. It does not happen like that. And life and consciousness still exists on those levels. And we are talking about the level of pure abstraction, light beings. This is a crucial refinement of the understanding of human culture right now, that there are beings made of pure light, and they are totally surrounding and interpenetrating you at this moment. This is not a separate world from this world. It is the same world. So it's really crucial to, let's define terms. I've said extraterrestrial and I have said extra dimensional. You know something? My spirit guides are extra dimensional, but mostly they are not extraterrestrial, because they are absolutely intimately intertwined with the events on planet Earth and the fate of Earth herself as an entity, and me being a part of Earth. You know something? I, as cosmic consciousness, have infused myself into the cellular body that comes from Earth. I am wearing this bodysuit that is made of earth matter. So I am absolutely connected to Earth and the earthly realm. So it has a lot to do with who and what one associates with. Like if you moved to France and you ate the food and lived the culture and all of your friends were French, you would care very much about what was going on in France and French politics and French wars and everything like that. Well, so this is extra dimensionals. Extra dimensionals would be classified like, I would say, the benevolent hyperspace beings that are clustered around each one of us, like angels, that work towards healing, towards greater knowledge, towards greater awareness. They are guides. They are constantly trying to assist beings who are wearing physical organic bodysuits, because the beings that don't have bodysuits understand the difficulties of being submerged in density. This goes back to what I was saying earlier in this broadcast, the difference between being submerged in time or being up above time. Hyperspace friends are up above time. They're able to see the whole entire musical score laid out before you all at once. They can see your missteps and your mistakes before you make them. And so theoretically, it would be incredibly benevolent to be in partnership and have clear communication with hyperspace beings who could say, wait, don't eat that sandwich, it's got salmonella. Or wait, don't drive down that road, you're going to have an accident. Or wait, don't go in that direction, there's a saber-toothed tiger there. It is absolutely pro-survival to be in partnership with one's chakras and the consciousnesses that come through those chakras. So now we're talking about, again, from earlier in this discussion, nested consciousnesses. The idea that you yourself can be comprised, like a recipe, of different subsets of consciousness and information. I just need to take another little drink. And that each one of your chakras makes up the recipe of who you are. So technically, literally, white light that comes from our nearest star, Sol, has a color recipe. And I will include a picture of one of my paintings on the live feed for you to look at so you can get an idea of the color recipe. There is always the most red. It is the longest wavelength. There is always going to be half the amount of orange, a third the amount of yellow, a quarter the amount of green, all the way down to 1/7 the amount of violet. So in this recipe for who you are as a light being, you're made of mostly red, then a little bit less orange, a little bit less yellow, and then we go down the spectrum, a little tiny dash of violet. Violet would be like the dash of vanilla extract that makes your cookies taste the best. And it's crucial to uphold these proportions because that's part of the recipe of what makes you who you are. And we can also say that persona or characteristics come from the slightly different recipes that are experienced in different people. So some people might have a lighter orange color in their chakra or a darker, muddier color, and that this is individuation. But that really so for example, I said earlier in this broadcast that each one of us has an indigo chakra, and the indigo chakra is the seat of Christ consciousness, the overarching entity consciousness, not the Christian religion doctrine, that exists within each one of us. So literally, the eye that is in your forehead, that spirit eye that sees the non-physical realm, that eye is a tiny mosaic fragment of a much larger entity. And same thing with your heart. So the heart is created like a vortex of energy that is whirling and twirling amidst itself through unconditional love, the act of love. The act of loving is like the act of singing. Like the act of singing, you are sending out energy. And in the act of love, you are also sending out energy. And you are receiving an equal amount of energy at the same time. It creates a beautiful harmonic bridge. And this is the first three chakras, red, orange, yellow, balancing up with the higher chakras of light blue, that's at the level of the throat, darker blue, the indigo, at the level of your brow, and violet, which is at the level of your top of your head, where a baby's fontanelle is, and it is the connection to source. So your physical body, your emotional, animal emotions, and your human mind, hacked operating system as it is, are balanced on the teeter-totter with the other side of the seesaw being truth, insight, and your connection to the divine. And when these two halves of yourself equally meet and equally share information without editing, without lack of acceptance, that is called unconditional love. So you know how so if you could imagine like 2 glasses of water, and you're constantly pouring one glass into the other glass and then pouring the full glass into the empty glass, this constant back and forth of energy being poured back and forth. And it's a closed loop, it's an endless system, and no energy is ever lost. Or to use another example from nature, we love dolphins, and dolphins have a fascinating brain structure because they cannot climb into their comfy, dry feather bed at night, and they have to sleep while swimming. They have to sleep while they are conscious. What they do is they use one hemisphere and they have the other one fall asleep. Then they switch hemispheres and have the one that's awake fall asleep. And so this switching off happens over very brief intervals, like moments, seconds. Right hemisphere asleep, left hemisphere awake, left hemisphere asleep, right hemisphere awake. And in that experience, a dolphin's totality of their experience is much more like dreaming awake. Well, this is the change that we as humans are going to be experiencing as we are experiencing the reunion of these two seemingly divergent and formerly separated aspects of self. The physicality and what can be recognized and defined and was formerly defined as the temporal self, and higher faculties. This is called becoming a full spectrum human, literally uniting fully with all of your higher faculties and with your chakras and working in divine partnership. So I also teach a lot more. Well, this is just the basics of being aware of one's energetic anatomy. Once you begin to become aware of your anatomy and actually feel it, boy, oh boy, there's all sorts of wonderful things you can do with it. And now, no giggling aloud, class. I will use the analogy of going through puberty. That with puberty, the body is bathed in hormones and it causes structural changes to the actual physical body and then allows the body to do things that couldn't be done when it was in a less mature state. And it's the same thing with your being. Humanity is currently in the linear stage of being, kind of like a caterpillar or, a little worm that crawls along the ground. And it has not yet undergone its pupal stage, climbing into the chrysalis, and metamorphosis, which will bring it to the adult stage. In the adult stage, the winged form of an insect is no longer linear. Is non-linear. A butterfly doesn't have to climb down the entire trunk of a tree and crawl along the ground and then find another tree and climb up the trunk of that tree and climb out to the very end to get to the flowers that it wants. No. A butterfly flits from flower to flower. And forget about all that climbing up and down the length of the tree thing. That's linear consciousness. Linear consciousness says I have to first experience breakfast, then lunch, then dinner, then sleep, then the next morning breakfast again. But non-linear consciousness can go breakfast today, straight to dinner, to breakfast 2,000 years in the future, to lunch 5,000 years in the past. What I'm really talking about is developing the capacity through utilizing the higher faculties and adding another dimension with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and being able to connect through consciousness across time. You can connect to beings who lived thousands of years ago. You can connect to beings who do not yet exist. And this is another vital part of the preparation of humanity for galactic interaction. Because, some cultures that you can speak to telepathically right at this moment technically don't exist yet. If you were to hop in your car and drive to their star system, super fast, and go there, right now, they wouldn't be there. They won't be there for a couple of 100 million years. That doesn't matter. You can talk to them right now. This is essential for achieving galactic consciousness. The understanding that time is not a relevant limiting factor anymore. To give another example, emanations come from the Great Galactic Center. At the center of our galaxy and at the center of every galaxy is a supermassive black hole. This is necessary because you have to have a lot of gravity or a lot of that cohesive force to keep together all of these other stars from merely flying off all in their own directions. So this is like the core consciousness. This is the central entity that is broadcasting from the galactic center. And that galactic center broadcasts through your local centers, just like you have your local cell phone cell towers that get the broadcasts. The local cell phone towers would be analogous to stars, that we receive our broadcasts of cosmic consciousness, of the galactic entity perspective from Sol, our nearest star. That is the nearest and loudest and brightest voice of cosmic consciousness. if we know, well, we know that it takes light 8 minutes once a photon leaves the surface of our star to actually reach the surface of our planet, right? But how long does it take for information or consciousness to travel from the great galactic center to where our star is? Well, first of all, I'll tell you, we are in the boondocks. We are totally hicks in the sticks. We're totally out on one of the outer edges of our galaxy. And if light had to physically travel, like let's say the galactic center was going to send out a photon that had some information for us on Earth, it would take literally millions and millions and billions of years for it to travel across all of that interstellar space and actually get to our planet and actually get into someone's eyeball or get into someone's mind and have a concept. Clearly, by the time energy and concepts would arrive to our little out-of-the-way neck of the woods, it would no longer be relevant, because we are part of a larger entity that is having experiences. It's like neural impulses. If I send out a neural impulse at birth to my toe, like to wiggle and move about, and my toe doesn't get that impulse until I'm already dead in the ground, that is not an effective way of communicating. And if this great galactic being was trying to send Earth messages via linear photon emissions, it would take an unbelievably long amount of time. We would no longer have life here by the time the message reached us. So, this level of communication happens beyond time. It happens in hyperspace. We receive real-time broadcasts from the great galactic center, the brain in the center of our galaxy, through our sun, and these are real-time updates. And our DNA is like the bridge of light between the non-physical realm of pure uncollapsed waveforms and possibilities of the fifth dimension and higher, and the world that we see around us of hard-edged objects, of, seemingly immovable objects. And the sun is where we get patches for this code. Just like your hacked operating system, how Microsoft downloads patches to you for things that are weaknesses? Well, there are clearly genetic weaknesses that have been foisted upon humanity by these extraterrestrial overlords. And remember when I was making that distinction between extraterrestrial and extra-dimensional? I'm just going to wrap up that conversational loop by contrasting. Extraterrestrial means a consciousness that does not derive nourishment or have its residence on Terra, on the Earth. So there are many presences that live in a corporeal form on other rocky planets in other areas of the universe, and they are extraterrestrial. But they're not necessarily extra-dimensional. If they live in a corporeal body, and they drive around in a car or a souped-up car shaped like a UFO, then that is their experience. And so I only have a few more minutes left on this broadcast, but one of the things that I wanted to get into in preparing for the birth of a new dimension, one of the things that will occur is meeting and interacting with many hyperspace beings. And part of the experience is to be discerning. The experience of being here on Earth, when you meet other humans, it's wonderful. Little tiny children are open from the beginning, but eventually you learn you can't trust everyone. You have to be discerning. You have to understand quality of energy, and that people have agendas, and that people have a recipe for their persona that might not mesh with your persona. And I talk about this. This is like, service to self entities, as contrasting with service to other entities or any of the beings that exist in between that spectrum. But, some of the personality characteristics of some of these hyperspace beings and non-terrestrial entities is to exploit and control others and to work through systems of domination and control. And, well, this is like saying, we need to get rid of them all, we need to eradicate all of them. That is like saying we need to get rid of the ego. It's like saying we need to get rid of the emotion of anger at the level of orange. We do not need to eradicate. We do not need to get rid of. When you reach the level of unconditional love and you begin to achieve the exalted perspective, you recognize it is not necessary to kill, and killing and getting rid of does not fix your problems. It just pushes your problems under the carpet, and then they pop back up in another time and place, and because realities are so interconnected and so intertwined, you experience the same thing just biting you in the behind again. In order to really put these things to rest, they must be resolved. And unconditional love is the universal solvent that is used to resolve issues, resolve conflict, resolve emotional detritus. People say water is the universal solvent, saying that it dissolves everything. No, it is unconditional love. The force of acceptance is what dissolves these things. But of course, let us not confuse acceptance in the energetic and emotional realm with acceptance in terms of behavior. So, I can accept like an axe murderer and say, yes, I accept that you are doing this and that you are a violent person. That doesn't mean I'm going to walk over to them and hug them, especially if they've got an axe and they're trying to murder me. That's not what I'm trying to say. If I accept that a being is on a murderous rampage and that they're a dangerous being, I don't place myself in their proximity. That's pretty much, by definition, this person is an axe murderer, don't be near them. So there are beings that have certain negative personality characteristics that involve domination and control and using and exploiting others. It is not necessary to control them. It is not necessary to kill them. Those beings need to live and experience their life. And they don't need to have their life experiences all over you. So they get to do it in a different place, and you get to choose who and what you interact with, both on a human corporeal level and on a non-corporeal level. So as we begin talking about the different types of beings that inhabit hyperspace and the non-physical realm, we're going to talk about simple, practical ways for determining, is that a being whom you would wish to be in a relationship or a communication with. I am very discerning, and I do not have any hyperspace friends treat me in any way that I wouldn't let a friend in the regular physical realm treat me. I wouldn't let a hyperspace being speak to me rudely, try to steal from me, try to enter my home or my mind against my wishes, try to control me, demean me, or in any other way exploit me. The whole idea of love is that is an equal energy exchange. And I invite all of us to be that discerning in all of our relationships, both corporeal and non-corporeal. Make sure that your relationships are an equal exchange of energy. And that means that if you work for or give energy to a person, thing, idea, or organization, make certain that that organization appreciates and sends back and reflects that goodness to you. This is true universal partnership. And this is also coming into cosmic adulthood, becoming the adult winged form that we are all destined to be. This is what the new dimension is. It is populated by adult, full-spectrum humans who are flitting from flower to flower of consciousness and enjoying the amazing experience. I'm signing off for this week. Please join me next week. Thank you so much.